Hello, I'm Raima Pabalan, your instructor for Principles and Strategies of Teaching Medical Laboratory Science. Generally, the concept of learning strategies is very important. Many teachers or more teachers need to be aware and should improve their students' learning strategies. And in today's society, learning is a cooperative process that includes social interaction. Teaching strategies refer to methods used to help students learn the desired course contents and be able to develop achievable goals in the future. Teaching strategies identify the different available learning methods to enable them to develop the right strategy to deal with the target group identified. For Module 5, we will be discussing the different teaching strategies. I have divided this module into 4, and this will be the first part, which is the teaching strategies or the traditional method. For the learning outcomes at the end of this module, you shall be able to discuss the different teaching strategies and distinguish their applications in learning situations. The teaching strategies refer to methods used to help students learn the desired course contents and be able to develop achievable goals in the future. Teaching strategies identify the different available learning methods to enable them to develop the right strategy to deal with the target group identified. So when we say teaching strategy, it deals with the overall design of how the lesson will be delivered or executed to the students. It can also mean your methodologies and own techniques that you adapt to carrying out a particular teaching method. It can be personalized because you can develop your own techniques which can be different from others. Teaching strategy can be in the form of a traditional method, activity-based, computer-based, or distance learning. This will be discussed with you individually as we move along with this presentation. And kindly note that your strategy should always depend on your goals and your styles. When you strategize your teaching, you have to remember whether you want it to be teacher-centered, which means that you are the main figure, the teacher. You are the authority, and your main goal is to pass knowledge to your students. Assessments are done objectively, or if you want it to be student-centered, which means that both you and your students play an equally active role in the learning process. You just facilitate your students, and assessments are measured through formative tools, just like what we will require you before the end of this subject as your final requirement. In the traditional lecture method of teaching, the teacher is the one who imparts knowledge to students through lectures. For example, in the classroom setting, I am your teacher in front of you, discussing teaching strategies, supplying you with the necessary information using audio visuals such as like this, the PowerPoint presentation, and you will just listen, and occasionally I will just be asking you some questions through the recitations, and usually this is commonly done by all teachers. In the traditional lecture method, it can be done either formally or informally. The formal way is usually done during seminars and symposiums, but can also be done in a classroom setting. Informal discussions are usually spontaneous, and since the teacher is the sole supplier of knowledge or information, there can be a tendency that the teacher can monopolize the lecture. So to prevent that or minimize such a scenario, the teacher should keep everyone engaged in discussions by giving direct and simple questions such as, David, for example, David, what do you think? Establishing eye contact is also recommended, and a discussion starter should also be done by asking participants to come up with opening questions. Traditional lecture method can be done by lecturing, discussing, and questioning, and the use of audiovisuals. Each of these will be discussed as we go along with our discussion. The majority of teachers consider lecturing as the most effective tool for teaching and learning. The teacher presents the learning material, delivers it to the learners, and lecturing can even stimulate the students' interest regarding the topics, and the teachers can be able to impart knowledge to the students. In lecturing, difficult concepts can be clarified and explained further to the learners until they understand it and it can also serve as a supplement to textbooks, especially if unavailable. Lectures can be used to condense a huge amount of information and at the same time can be able to become a supplement to a textbook because the topic can be further enhanced and explained thoroughly to the students or to the learners. Since the lecture is almost always done where students just have to listen, it can develop their learning abilities and also can be an advantage for students who learn best by listening. In teaching, when we say it places learners in a passive role, it means that they just absorb information without actually engaging with the information that they have received or may not interact with others and share their insights. Passive learning allows more information to be presented by the teacher and gives the teacher more control, allowing for a more organized presentation of the topic. This also becomes a disadvantage because learners will not have the opportunity to develop their problem-solving, decision-making, and analytical skills. Another disadvantage is it is not conducive to meet students' individual learning needs because teachers might have the possibility to presume that all the students learn in the same pace and are all at the same level of understanding. For learners who have a very short attention span and easily get bored by listening, lecturing is not for them. We have three types of lectures. First one is the traditional oral essay, wherein the student or the teacher is the only speaker. Another one is participatory lecture, wherein the students are given handouts containing the lecture that are not complete with blank spaces for the learners to fill in the information as they listen to the lecture. Third one is feedback lecture, wherein the topic and a little discussion is done and a 10-minute small group discussion is done among the learners to critically answer and analyze questions that are related to the lecture content. This is a good strategy because it enhances learning and memory recall to the learners. And another one is the mediated lecture, which is a traditional lecture done with the use of films, slides, or web-based images. Another traditional teaching strategy is discussion. It can be an open-ended and collaborative exchange of ideas among the teachers and students or among the students to further their understanding, problem-solving, and critical thinking. Discussion can be done formally and informally. In a formal discussion, the students should come to class well prepared and are asked to think about their questions and answers to their classmates' questions, and it can also sharpen their reasoning skills and analysis. Informal discussion is done randomly and spontaneously throughout the class. It can be done at any point, can be during the start, in the middle, or before the end of the class. Advantages of a discussion allows learners to apply concepts because there is an emphasis on learning instead of teaching. There will be more chances to clarify information and concepts, and it requires the participation of everyone so the learners can learn to work as a group and may develop positive attitudes such as being a cooperative learner because sharing of thoughts and concepts with everyone is being done during a discussion. Disadvantage includes that it takes a lot of time and it is only effective in small groups and may be tough on the part of the teacher, who is the facilitator, and may not be able to guide and provide true leadership in the discussion. Some students may also not take part in the discussion, while others may try to dominate or monopolize, and some are not even allowed to raise their thoughts among the groups. Various discussion techniques can be done to make it effective for learners. The teacher just facilitates the discussion, and should not discuss but rather let the learners do the discussion themselves. Set ground rules to follow and do not allow any member to monopolize the discussion, and encourage other group members to participate in the discussion. Tolerate silence to give them time to think, and at the end of the discussion, a summary should also be done. Questioning is one of the ways of helping students develop their ability to raise and formulate questions. Questioning helps to assess learners' comprehension about the topic that was discussed and places learners in an active role where it allows for frequent feedback, participation, and discussion, and this can develop critical thinking. The learners can be motivated to learn to be able to answer questions related to the topic. Convergent questions have specific and usually short and expected answers, meaning that these are questions that require a single response or an answer, while a divergent question is an open-ended question because they require multiple responses and answers to a problem. There is no single correct answer in a divergent question. This promotes the learner's engagement in classroom learning. An example of a divergent question is, write down as many different uses of a computer. Other levels of questioning are low-order and high-order questions. Low-order questions require a basic amount of understanding of an already learned subject or a topic. These questions are meant to encourage students to remember or recall information on the topic. An example of this is, who discovered the polio vaccine? Another is high-order questions, which do not just require a recall, but rather a more advanced comprehension. These questions encourage students to think beyond literal questions. Example, if you could choose one character from Harry Potter, who would it be and why? Bloom's taxonomy was created in 1956 by a psychologist named Dr. Benjamin Samuel Bloom. He created this to promote a higher form of thinking in education rather than just remembering facts. Bloom's taxonomy is a classification system used to define and distinguish different levels of human cognition, such as thinking, learning, and understanding. The current slide shows the question classification using the Bloom's taxonomy. Each level is explained by the level of thinking and the terms and phrases that are used in questions to assess the level. For example, in knowledge, it involves the recall of memorized data, and the terms or phrases used in questioning are define, how, what, when, and where. For example, to test the knowledge of the student, we can ask the question, define hematology. So we use the term define. What are the cells involved in hematology? We use what? Under the level of Bloom's taxonomy, which is knowledge. Factual questions require fact-based answers, and there is only one correct answer. An example of this is, who discovered penicillin? There is only one answer. Another is probing questions, which require a more detailed answer. They are often follow-up questions like, tell me more about it, or please explain further what you mean. These questions are meant to clarify or help you understand further the question. Okay, another is under probing questions, we have extension probes, which are questions when a learner has not given enough information about something. An example is, could you tell me more about it? Or what happened after that? Or what happened the next after that? Another is clarification probe, which is used when you just need more details. You want to further understand by asking for clarifications. Questions such as, what exactly do you mean? Could you tell me more about it? Next one is a justification probe, which is done when you want the learner to prove what he has or what he had just said, or you require the learner to present an evidence to justify, to support his or her answer. Next one are prompting probes, which are questions used to nudge the learner in the right direction. It is usually used when a learner does not understand the question. An example is if I asked a particular student this question, what is the square root of 81? Then that student will answer, I don't know. The teacher will then ask again until the student will be able to answer the question or understand the concept or the question that was being asked. Next one is the redirection probes, which are questions that are asked in response to another question. Example, I've asked this question to a particular student named Mark. So this question is, how are T and B cells differentiated? And then after Mark answered, I will ask Mary, Mary, do you agree? Or Mary, can you please elaborate on Mark's answer? Multiple choice questions consist of a question and a list of suggested answers which may consist of one correct answer among the choices or suggested answers. Open-ended questions are questions that cannot be answered directly by yes or no and require the learner to elaborate further. Discussion-stimulating questions are based on the name itself, are questions that are used or raised to stimulate or start a discussion. Rhetorical questions are questions that are asked with no answer that is expected. Oftentimes, it is just used to emphasize a point or just to get the audience thinking. For example, can birds fly? Do dogs bark? These are some techniques for questioning. Tolerate some silence to give time for the learners to think. Think time is another strategy to improve student participation. It is a period of uninterrupted silence so that all students can process the question and formulate an answer. And then for every question, provide feedback and handle wrong answers carefully. Do not judge and embarrass the student if he or she answered the wrong question. Another traditional teaching strategy is the use of audiovisuals. This can stimulate and add interest to the students, and this can be achieved by giving handouts, use of chalkboards or whiteboard, overhead transparencies, slide or PowerPoint presentations, and videotapes. The use of handouts can be an effective teaching tool. If given in advance, the learners can review them in preparation for the class discussion, which can be a time saver in the discussion. The learners can also review the handouts provided whenever necessary. The use of chalkboards, blackboards, or whiteboards are often used to show how to solve for a mathematical problem, to spell new words, and in illustrations or outlines. It should be placed where everyone could see it and is not advisable to use in a large group since it might not be visible to several students. Audiovisuals, for the audiovisuals are overhead transparencies. These transparencies or this equipment were used before and it was replaced by a projector nowadays. However, it has the same usage as a projector, but in overhead transparencies, we use an acetate sheet that looks like a bond paper, but it is transparent. We write the lecture there and the projector enlarges and projects the image from the acetate. In the projector that we are using today, we just need to connect it to a laptop, a desktop, a mobile phone, and tablets to project images from the mentioned gadgets. Slides can also provide realism to a discussion because of the use of pictures and images that might spark the interest of the learners. Videotapes can also spark the interest of the learners, and by using this, we can also replay and freeze portions of the video according to the needs. So nowadays, videotapes have been replaced by CDs and multimedia files such as MP4s. But in either way, they both have the same purpose and advantage. So this sums up the first part of Module 5, which is the traditional teaching strategy. There's more, so please check on the videos included in this module. Thank you for listening and have a good day.